grab your coat and get your hat. Leave your worry on the doorstep. Just direct your feet to the sunny side of the street. Can't you hear a pitter-pat? And that happy tune is your step. Life can be so sweet on the sunny, sunny, sunny side of the street.
Hi, welcome to another Sunny Side of the Street. I'm your host, Todd Gross, a clinical psychologist and director of Adams Street Associates in Newton. And our show, for now, believe it or not, 20 years, has really focused on the side of human nature that you don't usually see portrayed very well in the media, which is people and organizations that are doing positive things to try to make a positive impact on the world. And we've had many guests from many different ages, many different places in the world, and I guess one of the things that I really enjoy doing is talking to people who are the next generations coming up and hearing some of their ways that they're interested and involved in peace, because that thrust towards peace needs to continue. And it's going to be young people that are very soon going to be picking up that mantle. So this show today is talking with 3 students from Oak Hill Middle School in Newton, and another wonderful person who has worked in peace action and contributed a lot to the peace movement. So we're going to meet them and talk a little bit about the importance of peace and what goes into making peace. So let me introduce each of them to you a little bit, and then we will find out a little bit more about them as we go along. First, I'm going to introduce Susan Mirsky. Welcome, Susan. I'm glad you're here. And Susan is a longtime resident of Newton Highlands and was Newton Highlands Area Council President. She's worked with Newton Dialogues on Peace and War since its start in 2001 and chaired Mass Peace Action Nuclear Disarmament Working Group. So definitely a person who has done an awful lot of service towards peace. And then next, I'd like to introduce Anna Sirik. And you are an 8th grade student at Oak Hill. Welcome. Thank you for coming.
My pleasure.
Good. It's nice to have you here. And Isabel Sun. How you doing, Isabel?
Good. How are you doing?
Right. And you are also, right, an 8th grade student?
Right.
Okay. And Lele?
Yeah, Lala, yeah.
Lala Evrenk?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Oh, great. All right. Well, welcome also.
Thank you.
So, first, I'd like for the viewing audience to hear a little bit about why this issue is important to each person. And I'm going to start with Susan, who's been involved for a long time, to maybe ask you, just tell me a little bit about yourself and your interest in the peace movement. And also, if you could include how the idea for this show with Newton students came about.
Okay, well, I started being involved in peace, I think, from the time I was born. It was in my genes with my parents' involvement in peace issues. And I remember when I was in high school, and the Committee for Sane Nuclear Policy had just started. Well, we as teenagers thought, oh, those adults don't know what they're talking about. We know much better. And so that was a good lesson for me, because I do remember, and what stayed with me is the importance of voices of young people, because I always thought we brought a fresh perspective to whatever it was, and I know that you will too. So then I worked on issues of peace, so, through the beginning of the Vietnam War, and then onward, and developed or worked on the idea of working on peace locally, and worked on Newton Dialogues on Peace and War, which came about right after 9/11, in terms of people just being able to talk about their fears of what this meant, what 9/11 meant to them. So just sitting down and talking. And then I have always been interested and concerned about the threat of nuclear weapons. So at this point, I'd like to say that as chair of the Nuclear Disarmament Working Group, Mass Peace Action, I received an email from Anna, who said that as an 8th grader, she was responsible, and it wasn't, she was an 8th grader but responsible. She was an 8th grader and responsible, and wanted to work for peace and see what she could do and how she could help us. And in fact, she did. And it was a wonderful, delightful experience to hear about Anna and her connections with other students in peace issues, and in terms of what she would do. I thought, oh, you know, what we really need is some kind of poster to go into store windows to let them know about Newton Dialogues and the opportunity to talk about the concerns about the threat of war and nuclear war. So Anna just designed this wonderful poster.
Which people are going to see, too.
Yeah, and then she said that she would put them in the store windows, and she has. So we're going to make more and going to get to work putting them more, but you will hear more from Anna.
Yes, I'm going to ask you just to follow up, and thank you for helping us get this whole show together by contacting Susan. Can you say a little bit about, what made you contact Susan, and also what kind of experiences led to your interest in getting involved in peace, too?
Well, it's not really my experiences, but it's mostly like the people around me experiences.
That'd be interesting to hear, just like Susan was saying, even from birth, her parents were involved, too.
Yeah.
How about for you?
So I think that your parents influence you a lot. I don't think you can be born and think a certain way.
Sure.
And I think it's mostly like your parents. Your parents are the first people you talk to.
Right.
And they give you the idea of what you should work for and what kind of person you should be. And my parents, they taught me about their experience. They told me about how when they were in their 20s and when they were in their teens in the 90s, they lived in Serbia, and there was a war, and they had to leave. And that really struck me, because it's like they're planning their whole lives together, and it just fell apart from that.
Yes.
And I'm imagining how many other people there are whose lives just fall apart, and they can't get it together because of that. And I'm wondering, how could I help? And there's also my grandparents, and they talked about how in World War II, my grandpa couldn't go to school, and that struck him, and his school got bombed. And when he was a little kid, he couldn't go to school, and that really struck me. And there's so many stories out there, and there's so many books out there that talk about this, and it just affects people in many ways. And when people hate, they don't really think. When people start a war, they're not thinking straight. It's just a part of their brain is clouded, and they don't realize how many people they're affecting. And I think that idea should be talked about, that people don't think when they hate, and people don't think when they do things that will ruin people's lives like that.
That's very well said. And I was really struck by the fact that you have people that you are raised around and you know there's something of their stories, and you put yourself in their place, and it makes you think there's a big issue here.
Yeah.
And you really said it well, so thank you for that too.
Of course.
And we're coming back for more, but let me ask Lala next a little bit. Some experiences and influence that you've had that led you to seek opportunities to work for peace.
So I moved from Turkey to America around 3 years ago, and at my old school in Turkey, it was an international school. So, there were some foreign students, but mainly we were all Turkish,
Uh-huh.
so we share like similar culture, similar language,
Right.
like same religion, you know, and it's all very like uniform, you know, so it's very easy to like relate to the people around you. But when we moved to America, it's very diverse, and especially Newton is like very diverse.
Right.
And it's a beautiful thing, like to have that many different types of people. But also, I think sometimes, not the diversity itself, but like some people's like qualms around it can lead to like cultural like friction or like tension between people. And I think like peace in a community is being able to not only accept the differences, but work with them. Like it's like a bug, not a feature, you know? And
Where did you get that? That's very wise. And where did you get that feeling? What was it? Just observing amongst what you saw around you?
just like like stuff that happens at school sometimes, like things people say. There's a lot of stuff people pass off as jokes, and I mean maybe in the moment they think of it as jokes, but it still has an impact. And it also got me thinking about how, like in Newton, it kind of feels isolated here. Not like isolated, but you feel like distant from the rest of the world. Like, you know, there's wars going on, there's like famine going on, and here I don't think like, obviously it's like very safe here, but at the same time those things sort of, the effect of them shows up here, you know, like discrimination or harassment, like it still happens here. So
Right. I also think that one of the things you're bringing out with what you're saying is that because we're not where the war is happening,
yeah.
we can get numbed to it. We can almost turn off our feelings
Yeah.
about it. And I like that you're saying I'm not going to let that happen.
Yeah.
And doing piecework is one way to make sure you're knowledgeable and involved with stuff. So that's excellent. And I'm going to also ask Isabel now, if you please. What moved you to get involved in working with peace too? What were the influences and stuff like that?
My experiences are actually kind of similar to Lale in my school.
Yeah.
I've seen a bunch of like people make jokes that might have seemed like jokes at the moment, but might have offended people who like were targeted, and that sort of happened to me too. Like some of my friends I carpool with back home, they're Asian, well, so am I, and they make some jokes to Asians that like aren't that nice, but they don't see that as a bad thing. They're like, oh, it's so funny, why are you being so sensitive about it? But that can also genuinely like impact someone, and someone might be offended. So that kind of drive me to get to do some more piecework, because I feel like some jokes cannot be like seen as jokes because they're just so influential to other people that might be affected by it.
It's interesting that you say that. You're bringing out another very important part. Last night we went to to watch a movie and talk about prejudice and violence towards Asian people. And it was an amazing, and like you're saying, we live in Newton, we know that it's pretty not a big violent community, and we're not at war, and we sort of accept those as the norm. But this movie talked about how much it hurts when people say things, and how sometimes the speech can lead to violence as well, and there's quite a lot of violence that has happened there. But the positive part that I think ties in with what you said is that they showed how groups of people, because there were people harmed in their families, when it hits you directly, instead of just mourning privately, people joined them, and larger groups of Asian people banded together, and some of them ran for office, and this is in Atlanta, Georgia, and other places, and it was very exciting to see that out of some awful things, some empowerment came. And I think that's one of the things about peace work that all of you are hitting in different ways, that you want to feel some power over things when people treat each other cruelly. And names can lead to violence too. So I'm glad you brought that up too. Wow, what a group we got. I love this. I love this. One of the things I wanted to do with you is I was thinking about some of the things that are involved in peace work and some of the concepts involved. And so I wanted to get your opinions on a few different things, any of you who want to say. So I just thought of a few of the things, some behaviors that increase the chance for peace, and to ask if you agree, and if you have any examples where it's happened, like like the connection between piecework and just listening to other people. Any comments on that, the importance of really hearing what people say?
So I think piecework isn't always like doing straight up piecework. I think it can also be getting along with people and understanding other people better. I think that sometimes when we're in a town like Newton and it's very wealthy and we don't really see other things that are going on in the world, we don't understand like what other people are going through, and we can just brush that off. And I think piecework is understanding other people and accepting other people around you that are different from you and don't think the same as you. And I mean, as people that are not politicians, we don't have
Right.
power to like end wars and promote peace for the whole entire world, but
Right.
we can start little and we can understand people around us and be better at listening to what they have to say.
I love what you said, and what I get from it too is that listening is a kind of peace action itself, even when you take the time to pay attention and care enough to try to listen to what people are saying. Anybody have any other comments about listening or experiences? Yeah, where you're listening, you feel produced with a friend or somebody a peaceful outcome?
Well, I was thinking about how like living in two different countries, you realize that like I feel like people often exaggerate how different we are around the world, and humans, we're all like really similar actually. Like we all deserve to be treated equally. We deserve to be accepted, and I feel like listening is part of like building that understanding with people, and just like seeing yourself in them sort of, which helps you like build empathy.
Beautiful. That's great. Yeah, very good point. Listening, you know, your point around, despite all the differences and ways we make people that are different from us the other, you're sort of saying some of those barriers, if you really take the time to get to know people, they want the same thing for their families and their lives and when they go to school. So that's also a really good point. Any other comments on listening to that people want to add?
I feel like listening kind of brings awareness to some subjects that you might not want to talk about in your daily life. If you really like sit down with someone and talk it out and listen to each other, you might understand each other better, and those differences might become closer too.
So listening is also being open to learning, is what you're saying, and I think that's excellent. Really good. And how about you, Susan? You've been
So I was-
at this for a long time.
So
Aren't they
I was-
amazing?
They are. They're
I love
wonderful.
them. They're
You know,
great.
and so much. There were aspects of what each of you said that I thought, yay, right.
Right on.
And of course, it's the listening is so important. It's what we tend to do is to make, and you brought about, you mentioned the concept of the other. We make people as the other, and here we are in, you know, nice and Newton, but there are horrible things going on in this world, and talking about nuclear weapons with nuclear armed states, nuclear nations, which is very scary. But we make some of those people the other. You know, we in this country we tend to make Russians as the other. We have made people in the Palestinians as the other, and what we need to do in terms of listening, and you've talked about it in a very concrete, interpersonal way, is to do that with all people. And I think you brought that up, and the idea of listening as negotiation, that when there are conflicts, we need to listen, not treat countries, people in other countries as others. We need to listen and we need to negotiate.
Well said. And picking up further on what you said, the connection between listening and empathy, it sort of follows that you're listening to try to understand somebody else, and you look at the other person's point of view, and you learn something, and then some of the stereotypes or things you may have heard that were derogatory, you get past them.
Yeah.
Because they're people, and you listen. How about any of you that want to say things about how empathy even at a small level, in school or anywhere else, it leads to a more peaceful outcome between people.
I think when you have empathy, you're able to understand other people around you better. And I think understanding, I mean, we're all human, and I think understanding is what connects us all together. And if we can be connected all together and understand each other and have empathy for each other, I think we can learn to get along as humans.
Good point. Good point. Any other comments about empathy?
I feel like empathy and listening sort of go together. Like if
Yeah.
you want to listen to someone, you have to be empathetic towards them to understand what they're trying to say. And yeah.
Yeah. Any others? Anything else on that?
I don't know.
Yeah.
No, just the thought of that sometimes, it's great to talk with people who agree with you, basically, but it's also important to talk with people who don't agree with you. But to have that kind of, and I know it's sometimes hard to dredge up, but that kind of empathy to see where there are connections that you can make with people, and what are their needs, and where are their connections. And so that is, in a sense, a certain amount of empathy, understanding where they're coming from.
And I think, too, I agree with what was said, and I also feel like if you're listening and if empathy you look at as an attitude as well as a behavior, that I am wanting to put myself in the other person's shoes, there's a value to do it. What it does, I think, is it decreases the natural behavior of becoming defensive. You're with somebody that disagrees with you, you're ready to fight with them and disagree with them, and instead of listening to what they're saying, you're thinking of your next argument against what they're saying, and you stop and say, wait a minute, not only should I listen, but let me listen with empathy, with pretend I'm them for a second. And I have a feeling that leads to a lot more understanding, and as people have said, more peaceful outcomes too. This is great. Then the third one I thought about was the role of giving time and energy and caring and hard work to the cause of peace. Just engaging in the process of trying to promote peace in the ways we're talking about it. How important is that, do you think? Actually, not just saying things, but also engaging. Sometimes that could be marches, that could be meetings, that could be posters, it could be any kinds of interaction. How does it feel to be actually acting on peace?
So I really think that peace could be anything. I mean, people have different ideas of peace, and I think that that's where a lot of arguments start. Like, is this peace, is this peace, is this peace? But I don't think that you have to do everything. You have to, change the world to promote peace. I mean, people have different ideas of what changing the world is, but I think you could change someone's world if you listen to them and if you understand them. And I think that should be valued just as much as creating world peace and
Excellent. Good point.
because
Good point.
that could be someone's world that someone understands them and someone's listening to them. And I think that should be valued, and I think that people should work towards that because that could mean a lot more to people than they understand.
Sort
Yeah,
of
you
adding
want
on to that, you never know what type of little thing can spark some big change. Like
Yes.
one poster on a store wall might spark a big change or inspire someone to go towards the peace and peace work.
Yes, absolutely.
I feel like we often think about peace as something that, or at least I feel like a big attitude is that it's especially in kids at our school sometimes it's too much work. But yeah, like you guys said, it can be a really small thing too, and it's just it's I don't know, just helping someone out, or not even I don't know, just having the peaceful attitude. I feel like there's sometimes a lot of peer pressure to, if someone's saying something or making a joke about something, that you have to agree or stay quiet. Yeah. Or else you won't be in on the joke. But instead of just you could just tell them what they're doing wrong, and that would help.
So peace is sometimes can also be saying something when you see something, rather than being a bystander that doesn't try to speak their truth too. Yeah. Anything, Susan, you want to add on that?
I just listening to you all and hearing that peace for you starts from within you, and it is involved in your interactions with other people, and that it can be small, it can take many different forms, and in a sense, this is your future, and you will start out and you will grow with it and find whatever avenues of activism that work for you, that are meaningful for you. And so I'm really so pleased to hear what you have
I
to
love
say.
it. I love what each of you have said. And I want to extend a little what Susan was saying too. As a psychologist, one of the things I think about is that you're also, there's another kind of peace, and that's being at peace with yourself. And so if you are, if you're carrying lots of anger or that can spill out onto other people and create negative outcomes, working to feel more at peace with yourself, and including a lot of people that I work with, they're at war with themselves because they get so angry if they don't do things correctly, or they make a mistake, or someone says something, they can end up feeling really bad about themselves and beating themselves up. And I think we do something for the cause of peace. As Susan said, it can be in little ways or big ways when we tackle our own demons inside that keep us from being peaceful. And when we realize that everybody's got them and that it's not abnormal, we don't pathologize it, but what we do is we say, how can I think about this in a different way that maybe is more at peace with myself, help me be more at peace with myself, so I can bring that to my work with other people. So what we're getting, you guys are amazing. I've got to keep going. You're covering in a very interesting way this idea. This is related to things some of you have said, but the importance of working alongside people who share your caring and desire to help improve people's lives. It makes you feel, I know that's what, I would bet Susan has had a lot of experience with that, and Jackie and I have had a lot of experience working in Watertown, same way. You feel like it's very important to have close people in your family. That's part of who you are. It's very important to have good friends. That's part of who you are. And it's good to have a community of people that you work alongside with and share some values with, and maybe have some goals that are in common. It makes you feel like you have a community. I know you can talk from Peace Action point of view. How about from what you guys have you've experienced? Can you see that there could be a connection between doing different kinds of peace work in the ways we've talked about it, and feeling like you're part of something bigger than yourself, like a community?
So I think that when you surround yourself with people who understand you and people who will listen to you, you feel more heard and you're at peace with yourself, because you are the person you surround yourself with.
Right.
And I think that is an important aspect of peace, just surrounding yourself with people who care about you and people who listen to you, because then you can be at peace with yourself and you can treat others the way you have been treated. And I think that is very important.
Good. And anybody else want to comment about how you see there's an importance of having a community of people that feel like they want peace around you? And
adding on to that, like about the surrounding yourself with a good community of people, I think that's very important. And also, like what you said, people have different opinions than you too, and I feel like both can be true at the same time.
Oh, that's interesting.
Right.
Good.
And I feel like there's a lot of people who surround themselves with people who have the same type of mentality at them, not like same believing in peace, that's a good thing, but who like really enforce all the same things, like very like extreme sort of. And I feel like that becomes like the mob mentality, and I don't know, you like get very aggressive. But with peace, I think it's the opposite of that.
So you're saying that I think that it's not incompatible to do both things, where you work for peace and you feel the camaraderie of people who feel the same, but then, as has been mentioned by several people, you also challenge yourself by exposing yourself to different points of view, and you grow that way too.
And also, last year we did like this peace rally at our school,
Yeah.
like with Oak Hill and the high school.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and we like walked around and like we had signs, and it was like a really good feeling. You feel like you're part of something bigger than you. It's really important.
It is. It is. Has your school done any particular, like you just, I'm interested in any experiences from the school setting that you would say help promote peace from what you've seen?
So there's been food drives
Yeah.
and food
Yeah.
drives that promotes like equality around the community.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been the peace walk,
Yeah.
and there's been like the principal enforces peace. Like he wants to make everyone feel safe and equal to each other.
Yeah.
And yeah.
We also do like clothing and like coat drives really often, and I feel like it's so like, I don't know, it's like a normal thing in our school, which I really like.
Yeah.
Yeah, there'll be one like every few months. It's like,
What happens with the coat drives? What they're distributed to people?
yeah, they usually like send them to one specific person who takes in coats, and then they send the coats to like just I think to a program that like distributes them. I don't know.
Yeah, there's one in Cambridge. My wife actually works with
Oh,
them,
really?
does some work for them too. Yeah. Anything, Susan? Anything you want to add on that?
I just wanted to hear from Isabel first.
Sure.
So about the supporting people around you,
Yeah.
peace work can be hard sometimes, and it can be draining mentally and stuff. But if you have people that support you that you can fall back on, I feel like that's really important, because you don't lose yourself, and other people like that share the same values as you don't lose themselves either, because you're all supporting each other,
Yeah.
and that might help in the future. Like you're gonna become bigger, and you don't lose yourself on the way because you have people to support you.
And you expand yourself by what you're doing.
Right, and you
Yeah,
grow.
I think that's a good point too. Thanks. Anything, Susan?
So I have always found it energizing and relaxing,
Uh-huh.
comforting at the same time to be with people who share my basic ideals or my sense of humanity, my moral sense. And that's been in discussions in small groups at any level to larger groups. I went to New York City and was involved in a conference in November, and there were people from all over the world talking about, it was the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, and that was so exciting. There were so many smart, passionate people. That was energizing. And then I go to this place in the summer where we talk about all kinds of peace kinds of things, issues, but it is a shared, again, a shared sense of morality and the same kinds of human interests, or a moral sense, and that is very nourishing. And then I come back and deal with the greater community. Right, being on a march, as you said, is very exciting.
It is.
Doing something like doing a leaflet and putting it out, that kind of work can feel important. Anything from small to bigger, I think, feeds us and energizes us, and gives us new ideas. Sometimes talking with people, you share all kinds of basic principles with, but they see things a little bit differently. Like about what should we do about that war that is happening? Well, I think we should do this. No, I think we should do that, and you can get into that. But that is energizing also.
Right.
Feeds one. You learn from other people, I think. Always.
One of the things that takes into account what Susan's saying too is for me, there's a march that's coming up that I've done pretty much every year, the Mother's Day March through Boston. I don't know if any of you know about that, or if anybody has been in it or anything like that. There are some young people that do it too. But it started with a woman whose son happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. He was not a gang member, but he got in the middle of a gang shooting and died. And she, in the beginning, was mourning by herself, and then she started to have some neighbors come to support her, and they said, let's do a little parade around the neighborhood. It started with a very small number of people, and now there's hundreds of thousands of people that do this every year. They march from Dorchester to City Hall in Boston, and people wear T-shirts when, again, the way we may be insulated, they wear T-shirts with a picture of the person they lost and their name, and you're walking side by side and you start talking with them, and they bring the person to life when they're talking to you. And although it's a scary feeling because you're talking about violence, and we all are worried about violence, these are people, and they are strengthened by knowing that people care and marching along with them. There's a whole peace institute that was developed by this one woman, and she was on this show, by the way. We interviewed her a while ago. She's a clergy person too now. But that all those feelings of being part of it, seeing people walking beside them, talking with them as you're going along, it really is a good feeling. I'm going to shift another question, a little different, but the opposite side of this a little bit, and that's to ask, from all your different points of view and what you've experienced so far in your life, what do you think are the biggest obstacles to peace? What are the things that are going to be tough to really, so our audience gets to hear a little bit of not only our definition of peace and all the ways we did it, but some of the real challenges that make it hard to promote, to be able to achieve peace?
So I kind of said this before. I think people have different ideas of peace, and some people think that peace is war and that peace is not war. And some people just don't want peace. Some people have, they can't imagine a world that's peaceful, and it's so grilled into their head that they can't have peace, so they don't work for it or they don't care for it. And I think that's a huge obstacle for achieving peace, because not everyone wants peace, even though it's something that everyone should have.
Not everybody wants it. Some people can't imagine it. Some people are overwhelmed and feel like, what can I do? It can't possibly happen. I can see all those things being barriers we have to work with, What are some of the other things that you notice when you start thinking yourself about, all the good things we're talking about, the positive things? What are some of the things that get in our way?
I feel like if it's hard to bring yourself to start because you might be afraid of what people might say of you. Like, if you start getting awareness for, let's say, Asian hate at school, people might be like, oh, what? That's kind of lame. Why would you do that? Because, it's not that big of a deal, but actually it is. So, and you might be kind of scared of their opinions about that.
Which brings up the point that there's an issue. Part of the issue is education too, educating people about how you feel. That's and they have to be willing to listen and empathize. But when people minimize something, maybe because they're so uncomfortable, they don't want to talk about it, they don't want to feel it, or maybe they don't believe it can happen. But when they say it's lame, it's like a dismissal, as if what you're talking about doesn't even matter. And that is a big obstacle. And sometimes it takes a lot of persistence, I think, to be able to get through that and say to people, no, I'm still going to talk about this because this matters to me and it matters to many people, And sometimes education helps. It isn't always enough, but it is a necessary piece, I think. What do you think, Paula?
To expand on what Anna said about some people don't want peace, I really agree. And I was thinking about how there are a lot of very powerful people with influence and wealth who they profit off of the lack of peace. The less peace there is, the more they gain. So, and since they have so much influence, it's so that can be a big obstacle. But I think that communities that still individually we're not that powerful, but when we come together, we can be.
Wow. You're smiling.
Wonderful,
Susan. Yeah.
wonderful.
that wasn't-
Although all that you're saying, and you too bring in so many good elements to this. But
Absolutely.
when you were talking, I was thinking, oh, those corporations that are, they're in fact right here in Massachusetts that are making pots and pots of money, making weapons, all kinds of weapons, including nuclear weapons. And then our media that tells us that we need to, be strong, and we need to spend more money selling weapons, making weapons, and using them. So but getting together, it does feel good. Getting together.
Yeah.
Because people, on the other hand, are scared. When you talk about nuclear weapons, what do you think of? Is that such a horrible idea that, for the most part, people just shut down about that. And then, you have the fear of climate change. So both of these are, what we call existential threats. And people dealing with the fear in their own lives of just making ends meet, or of whatever is happening with them in their own lives, then to have this on top of it. So that's why, with these existential threats that are going to be around, we hope we're around. So good to hear from you and your friends.
Yeah.
You are the future, and we try to work to make sure that you have a future that is safe.
Thank you, Susan. I was thinking too, I want to ask you guys if you want to comment on it too, that one of the things you discover when you do peace work is that many issues that may be talked about separately, they really interconnect. Climate change is related to nuclear issues and stuff. I wonder how much you think about nuclear stuff. I'm curious, how much does that ever get talked about? Or is that something you're aware of, but it's in the background for you?
I feel like there's a lot of topics that get talked about, but it's just the same topics that get talked about over and over. It's mostly topics that affect certain people, and they only talk about that topic, but they don't talk about other topics that affect other people. And I think nuclear weapons is a part of that. I mean, people talk about like airplane safety or and it's important to talk about that, or like military safety. And I believe it's important to talk about that, but also it's important to talk about nuclear weapons because they're affecting other parts of the world. And even if they're not affecting America, we should still talk about them because the world we're all human, and if it's affecting someone else, we should care about it.
It's great. And you're bringing out the point that even in those examples that you can link a lot of issues together by just thinking about the concept of safety, that we all want to be safe, and all these different pieces of safety are important to talk about. But not to lose the bigger issue that, listen, we have things in common. We could maybe work together because we all want safety. It's a way that you can produce peace also by showing people the linkages between their issue, their particular issue, whatever it is, and others.
Yeah.
Anything else on that? On the nuclear stuff? Did you want to say anything?
I feel like since we in America don't really experience anything to do with like nuclear weapons, we're not sort of aware of it, but other people in the places in the world are experiencing it. So I feel like we should raise awareness about that and talk about nuclear weapons a bit more.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's like that one thing that, like political leaders and stuff, they'll avoid talking about it. It's like something that's like in the room, I guess, but like nobody wants to say it out loud because they don't want to like acknowledge how bad it really is.
Yes, right, absolutely. And Susan, I'd like just you to speak a little bit because you know so much about this, even about some things like our United States position right now compared to other countries on signing nuclear, limitations, stuff like that. I'm not sure that people get to hear that as much as we talk about it, but just a little bit on that.
Right. The U.S. has backed out of many nuclear treaties. We have not, we've not signed on to, we've backed out of treaties that existed before. We no longer have. We are expanding our nuclear capabilities. At the same time, we have gotten out of treaties with other countries. There are now some other countries that say we will have a no first use policy, meaning whatever happens, whatever conflict, however bad, we will not be first to use a nuclear weapon. Other countries have this, but United States doesn't. And in fact, right now, we have said implicitly that, yes, we will use nuclear weapons first, which is, you know, the scary part, because as we say, oh, it doesn't affect us here, it affects other countries. The nuclear weapons are now on hair trigger alert, and whatever we send over to another country will
They'll
come
send
right back
back
to
to
us.
So
Yeah.
it does affect us.
It does affect us.
Yeah, it's
you
well
know,
said,
and,
Susan.
And you know, and in the same, in that vein, I get so concerned about it, you know, and I have a friend who says it's not a matter of if it will happen, if we'll have a nuclear war, it's a matter of when, because we talk about weapons, the possibility of weapons being used intentionally, but also unintentionally by accident.
Yeah,
and
that's
in the
dangerous.
course of war, this happens. So for me, engaging you, I don't want to scare you, you know? So it's, I want you to be engaged in this issue, however makes sense for you.
That's what I was going to ask
But-
about next, actually. To the three of you, what kind of peace activities, you don't have to have an answer to this, but just to think about it, what kind of peace activities would you like to get involved in, do you think? Are there any things that you've already thought about, like, this is one piece of peace that I'd like to be involved in?
So I've thought about, I want to help like pet shelters around me, and I'm not
Cool.
the age where I can do that yet, but
So-
when I'm 16, I want to go around and help pet shelters because I love animals and I
Cool.
love dogs, and
Oh,
I have a dog,
they're the
so
best.
I want to help them because it's something I feel passionate about.
Yeah.
And I also want to be able to like communicate in art and understand art better. And that's something like I feel like art is a form of peace, so I want to be able to understand that better. And I also want to like pick up trash and help clean the sidewalks so people can walk and the environment can be look prettier.
Absolutely. Wow, I love that. Every one of those things sounds great. How about for you? What do you think, Isabel?
I want to start raising awareness on topics that aren't talked about much because I feel like that's the first steps to getting something
Good.
bigger on it.
Yep.
So like I want to raise more awareness about like nuclear weapons and the more like hate to people that aren't talked about. Like there's a lot of Black Lives Matters and that is very important, but there's also like other races that need more awareness.
I'm just curious, and this is for you, but you guys can say something on it too. Are there any classes in school or particular teachers you've encountered where these kind of discussions on some of these issues that don't get talked about much, that they are part of the curriculum or part of what you hear in school? Or is this something we end up doing outside of school?
I think it really depends. Like on Women's Day, on March 8th, nobody really talked about it, and but it's International Women's Day. Like it's something that should be talked about.
Yes.
And it was something that was just like silent, and nobody even knew about it. But there are certain topics that are talked about a lot, like when it's a specific month.
Yeah.
Like
Corresponding to a holiday or an event.
yeah, if it's like Hispanic History Month or
Yeah.
Black History Month, or if it's like Ramadan
Yeah.
or like Chinese New Year. We have like advisory lessons
Remember
for.
Miss Littman did this whole thing about Black History Month?
Yeah. So we have like Black History Month
Uh-huh.
presentations, and we are educated on it. And we're also educated on. We have like advisory, so it's when you get to school, you have a 15-minute like break where you learn things, and
Uh-huh.
it's like just to get ready for school and to like relax a little bit
Yeah.
and check your classes, like what you're
Uh-huh.
gonna do. And we have like slideshows that talk about certain holidays that not everyone
Knows about?
knows about. Yeah,
Yeah,
certain holidays
sure.
that not everyone
Right.
like is in or participates in, and we learn about that, and it spreads awareness for it. But there's some things that get brushed on, and we aren't taught about that we should be
Yeah.
taught about.
Definitely.
Great. Well, I think you guys are amazing spokesmen, really, in terms of understanding the issues here. And I'm just curious if some of your friends eventually watch this show or get to see some of what you've said. You know, I think, first of all, I think they'll be very impressed because you guys are awesome. But what advice would you give young people in general about that want to do something about peace? What would you tell people watching this show about to encourage them, do you think?
I think you should do what you care about. Like, you really are the best at what you care about, and I think if everyone does something they care about and something that they've seen affect people and they believe is very important, I think the world can be a better
Even like
place.
the pets you were saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you say? What would you want people to hear, other kids?
If you see something in your daily life that you feel really passionate about and you want to do something about it, do it. Like, don't hesitate, just do it. People are going to join you because that might be something they feel passionate about too.
Mm.
And they might be like waiting for someone to cue them on
Right,
and
right.
do it. So when someone else does it, they're going to be like, oh, like I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
Who cares about it?
Yeah.
I'm going to join on too.
Yeah, and I think when there's like a group of people that believe in something, and I think anything is possible. If there's a group of people that believe in something and want to help spread awareness about something and help do something, that they can achieve it. And as long as they're passionate about it and they really want to do it, they can do it. Anything is possible.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. What do you think, Lala?
Also to think critically when I feel like certain ideas are often like repeated a lot, but sometimes they're not like the best ideas, and I think the most important thing is to think for yourself, to like know your values, and yeah, just because other people are doing something, don't do something like what you guys said, do what you want to do and what you feel like is best for you.
Very, very good advice. And maybe lastly, we still have a couple minutes left. Can you think of, and we've done a little of this today, but can you think, each of you, the three of you, can you think of an example where something you did with our definition of peace, you really made you feel really good because it helped somebody else, or it may have promoted a peaceful outcome in your life? Anything at all that really just wasn't, that when you think about what's happened in your life?
So in school, like in elementary school, there are a lot of people that came and they're from different places and they didn't really understand like what was going on. And a lot of people from like Japan, they came to our school and they needed someone to be there for them. Like they didn't know what was going on and they needed someone to be their friend. And I helped them. I helped like teach them about the school and about what's going on. And it was really fun. And I met a lot of people that, like, it's good knowing different people around the world and their way of viewing life. And I really liked that. And like in November, I went to Japan and I visited them.
Cool.
Yeah, and that was really fun.
Wow.
And it's something I felt really great doing that, and I'm proud of myself for doing that because I did it when I was in 4th grade, and I met people all over the world, and I have friends in Japan now, and that's crazy to think about.
So cool.
Yeah.
Really, thank you. That's beautiful. How about for you, Isabel? Anything that you think about where I was thinking about something maybe where you spoke up or where you said something or something that you did that it just made you feel really good? Because I think one of the things that happens on this show is when people talk about things they do that are positive, they also point out that they got a good feeling from what they did too. So it's the goodness comes in both directions there.
Well, when I see hateful comments being made in school,
Yes.
like jokes that the person that said it might not think it's hateful, sometimes I would say like that's a bit mean, like don't do that in the future,
Good
and
for
explain
you.
to them why they shouldn't do that. And I felt really good about myself after that, because it's like I was defending a community that other people might not stand up to defend.
It takes courage to do that, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So somewhere you have found within yourself, like, this is so important that I cannot just let it be. I have to say something. And I think that's terrific. It's a real sign of strength inside. And how about for you, Lola? What do you think?
I think it was last year during the winter, there was the Turkey-Syria earthquake. And during that, I mean, none of my family members were harmed, which I'm like really thankful for.
Oh, thank goodness.
But I think some people we knew were.
Yeah.
So it was really sad, but we did a clothing drive for that. And like, it was awful to hear this stuff on the news, but it feels really good to be able to do something about it and like help them out. Like, yeah.
That's so important. And I wonder, Susan, you've been involved in so many wonderful things, and I love the work you've done in your life. But is there any particular thing that might be a nice example of when you felt so good about something?
I do have to tell you, this was, for me, a long time ago.
Yeah.
My first year in college, and I sang, and there was an international day. All the international students, we were in a courtyard, and I was in the middle with some of the teachers, and I sang a few international songs that I knew. I sang a song that I had learned about, and it was Japanese, first Japanese, then the English, and then the Japanese. And I sang this song, and I did the English. Everybody would know what it meant. And then from the corner, the far corner, in the corner, a young woman, a student, stood up. She started singing with me. And she was Japanese. Now this was in 1962. So she must have been a product of, she knew, or was around with the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And I learned from that was such an important feeling for me. So I sort of sang the rest of it, tears come, going down my eyes. And I realized that something that I did that I thought was, an important song for me was so important for her, because I think she was isolated. And so she then heard something that connected. And she came up to me, gave me a big hug, and we talked for a little bit. And that was so important. That was very meaningful.
That's beautiful.
You never know. So you never know when something that you say that is important to you, because, I sang that song because it was, my values, connects with other people. And
That's
it's
great.
that connection that can go on.
Absolutely. And pointing that out is great, because there will be things for each of you, like the things you said, but more coming in your life. And to be able to stop and think to yourself, that felt really wonderful. That just, I'm in the moment, because sometimes we're rushing to what the next thing we're going to do is, and the mindfulness of just staying with one moment and saying, that felt great. I was picturing what you said about your hope in the future working with dogs, and I have the same bias. I love them.
Yeah,
and
same.
They're just made of love. They're greatest. And maybe there'll be something where you work with a vet, or something you do when you speak up on something, or something like you said. So be watchful for that. And what I want to say in closing, we just have a minute here at the end. I just want to say that this is probably one of the best shows I've ever done in all the time I've done. And I
Really?
love the shows. Yes, you guys were phenomenal. And for the people watching, I would like to say that you want to talk about anything that gives you hope in this kind of world with all the problems. Just listening to the thoughtfulness and the perceptiveness and the willingness to communicate that the three of you and Susan have in this. I'm going to feel really great all day today because of you guys. So thank you so much. And also I'd like to say to our audience, thank you so much for watching, and tune in again soon for another On the Sunny Side of the Street. Take care, everybody.
Take care.
Thank you.